everyone, and welcome to episode 38 of Not the Worsted Knitting podcast. My name is Michelle, and I am the knitter and knitwear designer behind meeshyfrazz Knits. In today's episode, I have a finished object. If you have been watching me for a bit, then you will recognize this sweater. This is a design that I have been working on, and this is the 2x2 broken rib sweater. It's a design that I am doing as a maker for Blue Sky Fibers, and I don't have a name for it yet because I just finished it, but it's finished, it's blocked, it fits me perfectly. I am thrilled with how it came out, and so I think a large portion of this episode I'll probably be chatting about this, the final processes of me wrapping this up, and next steps with that, and then I'll talk a little bit about my works in progress. I don't have a ton of things to share today just because I've been kind of working on this and trying to get this thing ready to go. And then we did have a kind of a crazy weekend last weekend, but I'll chat about that more at the end if you just want to hear more about the knitting stuff. So, as I said, this is with Blue Sky Fibers yarn. This is Skyland, which is a DK yarn. And it is in the color Nightfall, which is this really beautiful navy. It's just like a perfect navy with maybe like a slight hint of indigo in it, because it's just a little bit on the darker blue side. And the breakdown of this yarn is really nice. So it is 40% Highland wool, 30% baby alpaca, and then 30% silk. And it's a fine Highland wool, so it's not itchy. It's definitely a warm yarn. So this is keeping me quite toasty right now. This will be great so we actually still have snow on the ground, and it's been very cold here in Western Washington. So I've actually been kind of wanting to wear this when I've been going out. Obviously I'm wearing it for today's video, but I don't think I'm gonna wear it out until we've at least taken photos, because I'm just so terrified of, ruining it before I can actually get photos of it and have all of that ready to go for the release, because that would just be a shame. But I basically, as a maker for Blue Sky Fibers, one of the programs we're doing this year is they're doing a yarn a month where they feature that yarn for the month. And they asked me if I could do something for Skyland in July. And I talked about this in a few episodes previous, but I was actually really stumped with what to do with this, because looking at the fiber content, I knew that this was going to be way too warm for a summer garment, or really any sort of accessory that you would want to wear in July. But when I really thought about it, I'm like, okay, the pattern is coming out in July. Anybody who's buying a pattern in July, summer is like almost over at that point. So you're probably not knitting a summer garment in July. So realistically, this is a pattern you're going to get to knit yourself for the fall or winter. So I decided to just kind of embrace the yarn in the best way that I saw, and I thought a nice, hearty, kind of classic sweater was the way to go. I've been in the process of kind of trying to go through my wardrobe and go through my closet and pull out all of these items to figure out what the gaps are in my wardrobe. And what I realized is I wanted some really classic pieces. And that's kind of what inspired me to make this, was that I just really wanted a nice classic 2x2 rib sweater. Nothing crazy, and maybe more of a neutral, which, for me, this navy is neutral. As you can see, I really like colors. So I'm trying to add some more pieces into my wardrobe that are a little bit, not basic, but a little bit toned down. Things that I can wear with layers and not be worried about things clashing if I don't want to think too much about an outfit as I'm going out the door. So I've had in my mind that I've been wanting to do something with broken rib too, because I like ribbed sweaters, but I like the cleanness of broken rib in that it feels a little bit less scrunchy. It softens it. Maybe soften is the right word. Not like a cleanness, but it just softens the rib a bit so it doesn't have that like scrunchy feeling. And that's because every other row you are just knitting instead of doing the ribbing. And so you get kind of more of a clean line. Like it just feels like more of a flat texture instead of a scrunchy texture that you have to squeeze into. And I just love the way it looks on 2x2. I swatched a few different ways. I tried 1x2, I tried 3x1. I didn't really like any of those, and 2x2 was just the way to go. So, and I didn't want the 2x2 rib to be uniform throughout. I actually still like to have a color separation, a color that looks different from the ribbing. I feel like a lot of times with 2x2 ribbing and broken ribbing sweaters, you typically see that same pattern just kind of run all the way through. And while sometimes I like that, that's not what I was going for on this. So I did a 1x1 twisted rib on the collar, which I carry through on the raglan. Again, in my viewfinder, it looks quite dark. I think it will probably look okay on screen because it always does when I make these comments, but I'm really hoping you can see these details. But I decided to run that line all the way down, and then it runs all the way down the side into the bottom ribbing. And then one thing I added, which I love, is I decided to carry it up the sleeve as well. So it actually, this is probably not the best way for you to see it, but you have these lines that run this way, and then a central line that runs all the way up and down. And I just really love how this came out. I love the way the lines play. I actually feel like this, on me, this feels like a very slimming garment, and that's not necessarily what I'm going for. It wasn't what I intended when I knit this up, but putting it on, I just feel really good in it. And I really want to knit this in a lot of different colors. And I also have decided that I want to do a short sleeve version for the summer. So I've been swatching with that, and I'm trying to figure out what I want in terms of composition. Originally, in my mind, I was thinking it would be really nice to have a tee version of this in more of a cotton. And so I first, I did a gauge swatch in the Blue Sky Fibers organic cotton, and this is a sport weight cotton. So this is 100% organic cotton. And I have to say, actually, I'd never worked with this before. I had a sample of this because I'm a maker, and for them, not just in general, because I'm a maker for Blue Sky. I actually really like how this feels. I enjoyed working with this. I don't typically like working with cotton, if I'm being totally honest. I don't love it on my hands. It tends to feel kind of stiff, and then the garments feel a little bit like, I don't know, just weighted and washclothy to me. I've sort of changed my tune since working with knitting for Olive Cotton Merino last year, and so I've wanted to experiment with a few other cottons. And so I was thinking a cotton version of this might be really nice for the summer. And so this is really funny, actually, to note. This Skyland is a DK weight yarn from Blue Sky Fibers. And so I ended up using, what did I use? I used a US 3, which is a 3.25 millimeter needle for the ribbing, for the small ribbing, for the collar and the hem and the cuffs. And then for the body of the garment, I used US 5, which is a 3.75 millimeter. And with that, it's looking like I got about 22 stitches per 4 inches. That's how I swatched it up. And then I did a quick measurement on the finished piece just to make sure. And it looks like that is still matching up, which I thought was quite a tight gauge for a DK weight yarn. I was a little bit surprised. So I decided that because this was such a small gauge for DK weight, the Blue Sky Fibers organic cotton being a sport weight, if I just used the same needles, I might get the same gauge. I did not, actually. I got a much larger gauge. You probably can't really tell from here. Let's see, can I do this? Maybe you can see the difference in how the gauge knit up. This ended up being significantly larger gauge. And I think that's just the nature of the way cotton. So being that this has alpaca and Highland wool in it, so you're gonna still get a little bit of memory. Well, really, that's probably just with the Highland wool, not with the alpaca. But I think you're still gonna get just a little bit of memory with that 40% fine Highland wool. This being cotton, it's fully flattening out, right? Like you're not really getting that scrunch back. I mean, I could probably throw this in the dryer and get a little bit of that back, but that's not what I'm going for here. I don't want something that you have to like wash and dry under special circumstances to maintain the right size or shape. That's just, I don't know, I just don't think that's really ideal. So I actually really like this. I like the way it feels. It's nice and light. I think this would be really comfortable as a summer garment, but it doesn't work for this summer garment. So then I went back to the drawing board and I decided to go with my tried and true Knitting for Olive cotton merino. And so I did a swatch in that, and this was better. So this definitely got me a little bit on the tighter gauge. It was closer, I think, where this was. So this is basically 5.5 stitches per inch. I think this was 5.3 stitches per inch was about the way it was looking. So it's close and probably enough to make it work if I was willing to maybe knit it and it be a little bit on the looser side, just because I don't think going down a needle size would be great on this. I think that would be quite uncomfortable, both to knit with and to wear, because it's a good gauge as is. But again, so this Knitting for Olive cotton merino, what is the breakdown of this? It is 70% cotton, and then it is 30% merino wool. It's a joy to wear. I really enjoy this in summer garments. But again, I think all of that cotton, it wasn't giving me the look that I wanted. I think it just felt very open. There's something about how it looks currently where it feels a little bit more delicate, I think, the stitch texture. And it just feels a little bit more subtle, where this is maybe a little bit more in your face, all of those garter ridges. And so I just wasn't quite sold on this. So I went back to the drawing board one more time, and it's actually really funny. This final swatch kind of served a double purpose, because at that point I've swatched so much for this, just like between all the swatches I did for this original garment and then the planning throughout. So hopefully you can see this. I'm not entirely sure if you will be able to see any of this. And maybe I'll take some B-roll footage or take some other photos if this isn't showing up. But for the sleeves, you have to decrease, obviously. And I played around with a lot of different rates of decreasing for these sleeves, because I didn't want a super tight sleeve. I knew that with the 2x2 ribbing, you're gonna get a little bit of scrunch regardless. And so I didn't want them to be too tight, but I also, for the nature of this sweater being more of a lighter classic sweater, I didn't necessarily want to go too voluminous or balloon sleeve. I debated it. I did debate it, but I don't know. There was something really classic about this, and I didn't want to go with too many crazy elements. I feel like I normally go a little bit crazy in one way or another, and so I was really trying to just kind of keep it a little bit more minimal. And I mean, I have some details, you know, I've got the lines going down, I've got the lines going up, but it's still, you know, it's a little bit quieter, I think, and that's really what I wanted to maintain. So I did a very, very subtle decrease rate on this, and then the decreases I have on either side of the twisted rib panel in the middle. And if you have decreased 2x2 ribbing, especially if you've done this on sleeves or something, then you might know that decreasing 2x2 ribbing is somehow way more complicated than increasing. You know, I swatched both directions of increases for the raglan before I started this, because I wanted to see which way I wanted to go, because when you change the direction, it actually changes the way the stripes come out. Either it's like one way they look like they're coming out of the raglan versus the other way they look like they're coming out of the fabric, just kind of like this way versus this way. And I swatched both ways and decided which one I liked, which is kind of your more classic direction that you typically would do with a knit sweater. And so I was thinking that I will probably do the classic direction for the decreases on the sleeve, but I wanted to make sure. And so what I did was, for my final swatch, I decided I would swatch increasing in the opposite direction, because I just wanted to see how that would look. And if that didn't look good, then I would follow through on doing it in the typical direction on my sleeve. So this last swatch, this is Haiku Sueño in the color Barn Door. Oh, and I didn't mention, sorry, the Knitting for Olive swatch. This is just in the color cream. Okay, so back to this swatch. So this is Haiku Sueño in the color Barn Door. This is 80% superwash merino and 20% bamboo. I have this in a few colors in my stash right now because I have a summer tee coming out that is using this. And so I had swatched a bunch of different things already with this, and up until that point, this had been my first time using the yarn, and I actually really, really enjoyed it quite a bit, more than I expected. I think I've used like 100% bamboo yarn, and I didn't love it because I felt like it was a little bit splitty and it just became so drapey and heavy. And so I'd kind of steered clear of bamboo. You can see a trend here of where I tried like one particular not great summer yarn once 10 years ago and didn't like it and then just like never used it again. So I feel like I'm just like finally coming around to trying out all of these summer yarns. And so what I like about this yarn is that, you know, it's only, what did I say? It's like 20% bamboo. So it just gives you a little bit of that. So you've got a little bit of breathability, and then the rest is superwash merino, which I think is still okay for a summer garment. Obviously, you know, you need to think about that, like depending on where you're gonna wear it, how hot you're going to be. Fortunately, I live in a fairly moderate climate. I'm in Western Washington, so our summers aren't typically bad, with the exception of like a couple of weeks out of the year, which in those weeks, I'm not wearing any knitwear anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I decided that this might be a nice one to swatch as well, just because when I had worked with it, it felt like it had sort of the same kind of feeling and drape as when I worked with this. It has a nice plumpness to it. I think that was a big thing I was missing with both of the cotton swatches, is that they just kind of flattened, you know, and that's what cotton does. Whereas these yarns, you get a little bit of that round, with the plies, you get like a nice round plump stitch, which gives you just a little bit of a nicer stitch definition. And if I compare, hopefully you can see those, and then again, these. So yeah, you can just see the difference. I just think that for the ribbing, let me get these strands out of the way. I think that the Sueño is just a cleaner effect. I don't dislike this, and I think this is nice for its own merits. And, you know, if you wanted to do maybe like a more sporty version of this as a tee, this could be really nice. But just for what I was looking for specifically, this feels like it's checking all the boxes. Now, you will see, so I tried the decreases the opposite direction than your typical sweater, and I did not like the way that that worked up. So I did not go with this decrease. Maybe, again, this is so awkward. I'm just like, here's my armpit, guys. I don't know if you can really, maybe you can see that a little bit. So you can see I did your standard decrease direction, and I'm pretty happy with that. You know, you're never gonna get, you're gonna deal with a little bit of choppiness as you're decreasing in 2x2 rib. It's going to happen because you're taking these chunks and you're kind of slowly decreasing them. But I feel like this was the best looking version of the decreases that I could do. I mean, again, look at that. That looks so much messier, in my opinion. I just really did not like the way that looked. But if we just ignore that and look at this swatch, I think I'm really enjoying how that looks. So I think I'm gonna do Sueño for a summer version of this. I'm debating actually between the plum and the cream. I think I'm gonna do plum. That's kind of my gut is going for plum. I like that color. I'm trying to bring a little bit more of those colors back into my wardrobe. But then there's also a part of me that's like, oh, wouldn't this be cute as just a white tee? But my fear is that the cream is actually gonna be more of like a yellowy white, and that isn't great on my skin tone. And plus, I think I actually have quite a few summer tees that I've knit that are white. So maybe actually adding some color in there isn't the worst thing. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'd love your opinion on if you have an opinion on what color you think would look good as a summer tee version of this. So it'll be the same gauge, it'll just be short sleeves. And the one thing I am debating actually for the tee, for the sleeve is, like, I know I went on about how I really wanted to have these separations for the collar being like a 1x1 twisted rib. But for the sleeve itself, I'm not sure. Like, there's a part of me that thinks for a short sleeve, it might actually be really pretty if it just ends on the 2x2 rib pattern. But I'm not sure. So I think what I'm gonna need to do is just knit it up and then try both versions, one with a normal cuff and then one where it's just done, just finishes on the 2x2, and just see which one I prefer. That's sort of the vision I have in my head though. So I'm probably going to go out and get myself some sueño, probably in the plum, but we'll see. And then the big debate now is, what do I work on next? I don't know if anybody else is feeling this way, but I'm kind of scattered with my knitting right now. I want to knit so many things and I have so many ideas and so many things I want to do, but I just don't know what to knit next. Like, I'm really excited about this guy and I want to do the tee version, but then another part of me is like, it's February. Do I need to be knitting a tee right now? Like, I could knit the tee in, like, I don't know, May? And like, maybe that would be better suited for me. So we'll see. I might wait on this. So like I mentioned, the pattern for this is done. The only thing I have left to do before I send this over to my tech editor is actually the yarn amounts, which is my least favorite part. Well, I don't know, grading isn't super fun either, but like calculating the yarn amounts, I so dread it. So much so that I finished this Monday? I think I finished this Monday. And I still haven't done the yarn amounts. Granted, I wanted to wait for it to dry, make sure everything looked good, make sure I didn't need to make any changes, make sure the sleeve length was good, all of that. And then I, cross-referenced all of the yarn I used, the beginning weights of the yarn, and how much I used. So for reference, if anybody is curious, I knit myself the size 2 and I used 530 grams of yarn for this. So, and I actually made a point to note how much I used for the sleeves, so I have a good idea of how much I'll need for a short sleeve version. I should have written this down, but I think I ended up using about 100 grams for the sleeves. Hopefully that's right. If that's wrong, I will put a note, but it should be, I think it's close to that. So, hi Boink. I basically just need to add the yarn amounts to the pattern, go through it one last time, make sure there's no screaming errors. I think there's like one more definition I need to add for one thing that I adjusted. And then it's ready to go to my tech editor. And so that means that once I get it to my tech editor, the hope is normally that within about 2 to 4 weeks, it will be ready for testing. Just because I don't want to rush my tech editor. This is a big pattern to read through. There's a lot of, there's just a lot that she needs to look through, and I never want to put her in a rush or assume that it's going to be in great shape. Like, I always kind of assume the worst, that it's going to come back to me just like full of red marks of things I need to tweak. That way I just, I have a good expectation in my mind if I need to adjust my timeline. So what that means is I'm hoping that maybe in about 2 to 4 weeks, I will be doing a test call for this sweater. So if you are interested in this sweater and you really don't feel like waiting for it to be released in July, then definitely sign up for my newsletter, because I will have a test call. Obviously, it won't be a huge, I won't be having like a huge group. I'm probably looking to have like 2 people per size. So definitely just keep an eye on that, and I'll let you know more about that as info comes for that. I'm debating if I want to go ahead and maybe add in the instructions for the short sleeve version. I don't typically like to do that until I've actually tested I've tested it myself, but I just think it might be fun if there are some people that wanted to knit the short sleeve version, and I already know what I'm going to do. Like, it's not the actual decreases won't change, so it'll just be the same rate of decrease, but you will stop at a certain point and bind off. So I think I might go ahead and add in the option for short sleeve. That way, if there are some testers that would prefer to do a short sleeve, like if you live in a warmer climate, or you just want it ready for summer because you'll be knitting it a little bit earlier. Sorry, I just have cat hair all over my face now. But yeah, especially, you know, if you're testing and you want, you just want a summer version, that is something to keep in mind. Obviously, I'll want to make sure that I have a good mix of people doing both. But I do think it might be nice to have both options for this, just because I think this would look really good as a short sleeve as well. And I'm really excited about what that will look like. And I'm thinking that what I might do is slow my roll with doing the short sleeve version and maybe wait until testing starts and then test the short sleeve version with the test group. So that is everything to do with this sweater. Hopefully this was interesting to you. I know this was a lot of info, especially for a pattern that isn't going to be out for a little bit. But I don't know, I've really enjoyed working on this, and this is really just a space where I'm chatting about what I'm working on. So I thought it would be fun to really dive deep into what's going on with it. But yeah, I'm really, really thrilled with it. And I can't wait to get it to the point where other people can start working on it. So that's it for anything I've like finished. In terms of works in progress, this is just going to be pretty quick because it's not much different than where it's been. My sock design is in testing right now, and I finally came up with a name for it. I debated a couple of different names, but I had a lot of people, including one of my friends, tell me that it looked like tally marks. And so what I thought would be fun is just to not be too serious about the name. And so these are now called my Tally Alley socks. And they're in testing. I think we only have one more week left of testing. Most of my testers have finished at least one sock at this point. It's working up really great. And yeah, so I don't think this one was finished in my last video, but it is finished now. Sadly, I only have one of each of these, which is why I'm calling these works in progress. I am still actually waiting on yarn for this, so I don't know when this guy's gonna get finished, which is a little bit sad. I at least have this one for now. And then this guy, so this is using, I should mention, just in case, this is using KnitPicks Artisan sock as the main color in the navy. And then the contrast color is Burn Book, which I love. I have used Burn Book in my Serac socks, used it in this. I want to use it in everything, and that's gonna lead me into something I'm gonna chat about in a second. But the second one is really fun. So this, the main color is again Hazel Knits Artisan sock in the color Vivian. And then all of these different colors are KnitPicks Stroll. And just a series of different colors to give sort of a rainbow fade. And so I also have, this is a shadow wrap heel. This is an afterthought heel. And both of these are in the 64 stitch size, which is a medium. And I am now working on a version for Thomas, which will be the 72 stitch. I wanted to have a pair in the large size because the charts for the small and large are slightly different than the charts for the medium and extra large, only because in order to make it work with those stitch counts, you do have to make slight adjustments. And I charted 3 different ways because I really wanted to make sure the one I did was the most accurate. And I touched on this a little bit in the last one. And so the one I ended up going with, I feel like it is a good representation. It feels very similar. It still gives you the same feeling. It's slightly different, but I think it's the least noticeable. When you look at the two, I don't think you're really gonna notice, but I wanna make sure that I have a version knit up in that chart so you can see what the differences would be. And so with that in mind, I knew that that meant that it'd be a good opportunity for me to knit a sock for Thomas because he is in that size range. And so I asked him I showed him both of mine and I was like, okay, let's go through my stash. Why don't you tell me what colors you want for your sock? And even though we looked at all the colors, he was like, I want this. And I was like, okay, all right, so we'll do a fade. Do you want the same colors? Do you want slightly different colors? And he was like, I want exactly this. So I am knitting him a matching pair. So eventually we are going to have matching pairs of socks. And actually I think it works out really well. That way you can see exactly with the same yarns how different the two charts will look. So this is working up very quickly. This pattern is so fun. I really love this pattern. I think this is a good one. The testers so far, the response has been really good, which always makes me happy. Oh, Boink is stealing my yarn. Boink is literally running away with my yarn. Sorry about that. Boink, our little senior kitty, she likes to go bobbing for yarn in my yarn bag. So she will actually just put her little face in my project bag, grab a ball of yarn, and then just like run with it. But then she'll just stop just at a distance, like just past arm's length, and look at me, just like, do you see what I did? She's running away with another one right now. Anyway, okay. So yeah, we've just got a bunch of works in progress of socks right now. So I'm going to finish this pair. That way we can photograph these two side by side. And then eventually, I don't know if I'll finish Thomas's pair first or mine. Probably Thomas's. I know. She's yelling at me now because I took the yarn back. So these will hopefully be done really soon. I actually just started these yesterday, so they move very quickly. And one really fun topic that I asked my testers to kind of give me their feedback on was catching floats. I normally catch my floats if I knit more than 6 or 7 stitches in the same color when I'm doing color work. That's just kind of always been what I've done. But I decided on this one to not catch floats. I talked about this. I've seen some people say that for socks, you don't really want to catch floats because it makes them a little bit tighter. And so I decided to do this, and I agree, like they fit great. They are not tight at all. And I think the floats are still, they're not terribly long. I think you might need to be a little careful with your toes when you put it in. And so I am trying for the first time doing that with a pair for Thomas. So we're gonna see if he can handle the floats and not get his toes stuck. But I've been debating whether or not to make the recommendation to catch your floats or not to, only because I didn't. But I know that it's so different, everybody's tension, especially if you're new to color work. So I'd love feedback on what you prefer to do when you're doing color work socks, if you like to catch your floats or not. So these will be done soon. The test is, like I said, we're halfway through it. We've got like one more week, and my goal, everything is looking great. We made a couple tweaks to the heel just to make sure that it's just notes on like you might need to cut your yarn and restart with the heel just in order to maintain this with the color work and all of that. But other than that, everything is looking good. So I think we will be able to get this pattern out by the end of the month. So keep an eye on this at the end of February. If you want to stay up to date for when this comes out, definitely sign up for my newsletter. But that is just about it. I'm kind of at a place where I'm ramping down, you know, especially like I think designing a sweater, it's a lot of work. It's very intense. It takes a lot of my time, a lot of my brain power. And so naturally what I'm thinking I want to do next is another sweater design. But I'm debating between a few things. So option 1, I work on the summer tee version of this. Already swatched for that. Option 2, which was my initial plan, was that I was going to do a sweater version of this guy with basically these yarns. I've hit a bit of a snag with this because there are some yarn delays and I'm trying to figure out what to do. So I think this would be really fun as a drop shoulder sweater where you've got, you know, the dominant navy with the color work in certain panels. I think it'd be really pretty and I want to see that through. And so Initially, I was hoping to get in the navy as a DK weight, and then some sort of a speckled yarn also in a DK weight to do. But I'm not sure if that's going to be able to happen. So I'm debating actually. So I've got, sorry, cat in the way. I do have this, which is, it's similar. So this is Collegiate, which is Hazel Knits Lively DK. Just to compare, so this is the in the navy and this is Collegiate. So it's just a bit of a darker blue. It's actually pretty close to what I'm wearing. Yeah. What I like about this is that it is so blue. I just loved how it looked with that speckly pink. But I was thinking that with this Hazel Knits color I have, which is Bloom, this could be pretty. The one thing I'm not sure of is if, I mean, this is a beautiful pink tonal yarn, but I wonder if knit up in a pattern like this, if you're gonna lose some of that tonality. I think what's nice about a pattern like this is that you can go for an absolutely bonkers skein of yarn. I mean, look at that. That is Salty Blonde Fibers Burn Book. This is a 2-ply sock. It's insane looking, like it's crazy. It is a crazy ball of yarn. But I think when you work it up like this, it becomes much more subtle. You know, it's not the main focus. And I might even pop up a picture of my Serac sock that uses Burn Book. So you can kind of see the difference of when it's used as a single color versus when it's used as a contrast color. And I've been very attached to this idea. And so I just wonder, I'm very back and forth, like, will this give me the same effect? Will this be just as nice or what? So debating a couple of things. One, will this work as is? I have 4 skeins of this. I have 2 sets like this. So I actually don't even know if I have enough of this bloom anyway. So it's probably not gonna happen. But I just found out that Salty Blonde Fibers does have Burn Book in DK. So I'd have to like special custom order it. I don't think you can just get it right away. I think it's dyed to order maybe, but I could do that. So potentially with 4 skeins, which would hopefully be enough, I would still need a swatch and everything. So I'd probably end up having to dip into my swatch. I could do this with Burn Book, but I worry that this might be too dark. Like if we compare this, I'm trying not to put it on top of my sweater so you can see. If you compare this versus this, can you see? Move my head out of the way. I just don't know. I don't know. And so that's one option. Another option is I could just try something completely different. I debated even maybe trying like spin cycle yarns, but I think when I was looking at it, it's sport weight, and I was really, in my mind, I had more of a DK weight in mind. So I'm just back and forth. So I'd love, you know, your feedback on that. But I think that's because I'm sort of stalled in what I'm gonna do with yarn. I just don't really know if this is going to happen anytime soon. So option 1, summer version of this. Option 2, drop shoulder sweater in some sort of form of this guy. And then option 3, which I have this plan for a winter sweater that will be coming out this fall. So I could start working on that now, and I could share it here. It's fine. It's just, I don't know. I don't know if I want to work on that just yet, although I could do it now, get it done, and, you know, be ready for the fall. And then once that's done, just get into my summer knitting. So that has potential too. And that is with Blue Sky Fibers Woolstock Worsted. So it is a worsted sweater. I'm also thinking drop shoulder for that one, most likely. I thought about maybe doing a contiguous sleeve, but I think what I have in my mind, I think drop shoulder is probably the best for that one as well. So those are my options. That's what I'm thinking. I also have a like a cowl design. It's either gonna be a cowl or a shawl. I already have the motif. I'm just trying to figure out which way I wanna go with it that I could do as well. Yeah, like I've got all these ideas and I think I just don't know what I wanna do next. There's a big part of me that just wants to work on the summer tee of this, but it's like, it's February. It's February, Michelle. It's February. So that's where I'm at. Now you know everything I'm working on. I don't know how much progress I'm gonna have by next week, so we'll see. I really don't know. It's funny, again, I thought this was going to be a super short video, and here we are 43 minutes in, so there you go. Lastly, I guess just to talk about the life stuff. I mentioned early on that it's been kind of a crazy week or so. Fortunately, everything is fine, but our senior kitty Boink, who was just here, you can see she is great now. She gave us a bit of a scare last weekend, and we had to take her to the emergency vet. She's okay. She's on a bunch of medicine right now, but she had some GI issues, and then we found out she had a UTI, and we've got some more blood work that we're doing on her. So we're just kind of keeping an eye on her, but she seems to be responding really well to the medicine, and that is such a relief. She's about 14 and a half, so she's our little senior girl, but she's still doing great, and she's very happy, and that's all we can ask for. So that definitely kind of shook up the week a little bit, and yeah, we're just really happy to be kind of on the other side of that and back to a normal situation where we're working with our regular vet instead of an emergency vet, and so that is a huge relief. Other than that, you know, just enjoying the winter weather. Since becoming a knitter, I actually really enjoy these really cold days. Like, it's been mostly in the 30s. It's been freezing every day here, but it's just been such a good opportunity for me to wear all my knits. And I'm actually wearing this sweater that has fine Highland wool and alpaca in it, and I am comfortable. I'm not hot and sweaty, and so that's really fun. I mentioned that I've been working through my wardrobe. I've been like cleaning out my closet and going through my clothes. I literally tried on every single pair of pants I owned. Like, I pulled out pants that I have literally had for more than 10 years and tried them on to determine if I should keep them or get rid of them. The fun part about having pants that are 10 plus years old is that they went out of fashion and now they're back in fashion. So that has been kind of fun to find some pieces that I had tucked away and forgotten about, and I feel like I can wear them now and actually look like I know what I'm doing. And I'm just trying to focus on the gaps in my wardrobe, mostly because what I want to think about a lot moving into this year is being really smart about what I'm knitting for myself and how it fits into my wardrobe. And if I do have gaps, how can I fill that with knitwear? If I can fill it with knitwear. Obviously, I can't knit myself everything, but there are a lot of things I can knit myself to fill a lot of these gaps that I have. And one of those was this very classic sweater in more of a neutral tone. And this is just a great staple. I can layer this with things like a nice classic trench coat. I can dress it up, dress it down. There's a lot I can do with it, and I feel like this has become a nice versatile piece for me, and I'm looking forward to actually wearing it out. I don't know, I've been thinking I might focus more on coming up with fun outfits that I can wear with my sweaters and my knitwear. Trying also to think about wearing my sweaters with more than just jeans. It's kind of always my go-to is just to wear my sweaters with jeans, but it'd be nice to wear them with more skirts and dresses, and thinking about what that means in terms of like, do I want to knit a version of this where it's really cropped because I know I'm wearing it over like a spaghetti strap dress or something. So it's nice to actually focus on what I've got in my wardrobe and think about, hey, a sweater on top of this would be cute if it were cut to here. So maybe I'll share some of that in future videos. I don't know, we'll see if that's interesting or not, or if I come up with any outfits that I actually think look good enough for me to share. But that's basically what's going on with me. So yeah, that kind of covers it for knitting for this week, this last couple of weeks really. In terms of reading my book chat, I finished A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston, and that was just a fun little book. It didn't take itself too seriously. It wasn't anything crazy. It might have been a little bit predictable, but it was a nice light read, especially coming off of the more heavy reads that I had since. By the way, this is Boink. If you're new here, she's our senior lady who is making a very nice recovery, and we're very happy about it. Say hi, Boink. She doesn't want to say hi. Anyway, so yeah, so that book, if you haven't heard of it, it's definitely, it's a love story, and I would say it is sort of reminiscent of like Stranger Than Fiction meets The Truman Show. And that's probably all I'll say. It's a fun little story where a woman accidentally finds her way into this town and is kind of stuck there and meets some very interesting characters along the way. And so that was just a very nice, light, fun read. And once I finished that, I actually, I finally was able to read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This one has been on my list forever because so many people have talked about it and said it's a really good read. And it was just like, it was something ridiculous, like 30 weeks out on my library wait list. So I finally got it, and I actually just finished it last night. I enjoyed it. It was an interesting concept. I don't know if I loved the way it ended. I mean, I felt like the ending I kind of saw coming about halfway through, and it's great. I guess I was expecting maybe a slightly more poignant end. I think overall it was a nice read. It was a nice, especially I think if you're in kind of a dark place, this is probably a really good book to read to change your perspective, I suppose. I mean, I don't think it's like the be all end all of making you feel better, but it's a nice approach on, you know, talking about a character who's struggling in the decisions they've made in their life and the option of like, what would it be like if they had changed a decision, if they had done something a little bit differently, sort of like a sliding doors sort of thing, but like trying on all the different versions of your life in sort of this like parallel universe, all of the different branches that you could have taken if you had done one thing differently. So that was, yeah, it was another fun read, nothing too heavy, nothing too dark. And I just finished that last night, so now I have no idea what to read next. I think I have some things in my queue, can't even tell you what they are, don't remember, but that is where I'm at with my book chat. So, if you watched until the end, Boink and I both thank you very much for watching. Thanks for sticking around through all of this, through hearing me chat about swatches and what I want to knit and having no idea what I want to do next. But I so appreciate you joining me for this and watching until the end. I'd love to hear what you're working on, or if you have any input on what you'd love to see next. If you would like to get in touch with me, you can find me at meeshyfrazz on Instagram, Ravelry, and Blue Sky. I will try to post more on there. I'm getting the hang of it, but I will be posting more on there. You can also email me at meeshyfrazz@gmail.com, and you can find me at my blog, which is meeshyfrazzknits.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.